love Wicked and come from away? Are you borderline obsessed with Hamilton? Well, come and join me while I talk to Alice Fearn and Nuno Queimado about all things understudies, covers, swings, and our experiences on stage. Welcome to the Acting Edit!
And action! It's a wrap.
This conversation was recorded way back in the end of March, and I am now sharing it with you. So I'm sorry about the editing. I was still getting to grips with Zoom, but I hope you enjoy it.
Hi everyone, I'm here with Alice and with Nuno, and welcome to the Acting Edit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I brought these two gems of people in today because they both have really wonderful experiences with understudying and alternating and swinging and all of that in the theater world. Let's keep it like that. And yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about how were the audition processes for it, and then in the actual shows, how does it happen? So let's start with Alice. I know that your first ever West End role was Understudy, I believe, Laura Fearn,
it was
in Woman in White. So how
it was? Well, it was daunting because I didn't think I was a soprano, so there was lots of things going on with that job. I got offered this job, and they put me in the young soprano Jubilee role, second cover, and I was like, well, I can't really do that. I'm not particularly brilliant at soprano. But anyway, so I had lots of things going on, but I think it was brilliant because it was better for me in hindsight to go that route, because I learned a lot watching other people. And I think that's something that I have done ever since. And I think because you sort of see the lady who's playing it, Al Silber, who is still a very good friend of mine, you just see her process, you learn from her. Then you see someone else, the first cover, doing it, and you go, okay, so that's how they're doing it. I see that they've got different things going on. And you start to believe in yourself, okay, maybe I'll do that, because I actually felt like I wanted to do it that way. So, you start making choices because you're seeing other people that are ahead of you, doing the roles first. So, it was incredibly daunting for many reasons, but actually I was second cover for a couple of years, and then I became first cover, and that sort of journey I think has really helped me be who I am now, because it taught me a lot about the process, and it got me to view other people's processes quite actively. So I think, I loved it though. I mean, I listen back to the show now and I really don't like it at all, but at the time, I was the show's biggest fan. I mean, I could not have been, oh my God, I love Woman in White, and now I listen to it and I can't listen to more than 2 seconds. But hindsight's a wonderful thing. But yeah, God, I literally was walking around going, it's the best show ever.
How old
but
were
no,
you
it
at
taught
the
me a
time?
lot. I just graduated, so 21, 22.
Okay. And now, Nuno, you have not the exact opposite, but your experience is different. So you started having some smaller roles in the West End. You debuted with From Here to Eternity, I think, was like your first one?
It was my first musical, but I did another show before where I sang and I danced. It's
okay.
it's an interesting one. But yeah, no, that was my first musical. Was my first West End as well. I covered like a small part. It was arguably like I was an ensemble and I covered a featured ensemble pretty much.
Okay.
So yeah, that started, if anything, I was observing how the system worked on other people, on the dance captains, on the swings, on the covers. So I had an easier way in. So I started gradually.
Yeah, and then you kind of started having your own small roles in other shows, and then all of a sudden you arrive at Hamilton. There you go.
I mean, I love the Dada, and I do feel like that about, I feel very lucky and grateful. But I wouldn't say it was all of a sudden. It was quite...
No, of course
not.
I said, it took years to get there.
A beautiful, gradual way in to kind of learn the ropes, and some of them were like big jumps. I think the first biggest jump that I think about whilst talking about this was Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, where I was the first cover of our fellow Portuguese Ricardo Afonso, who's our pride and joy. But so much that he's our pride and joy that he can sing very high. And that was a panic of my soul. So much that on the first day of rehearsals, we arrived, and I remember part of the cast couldn't join us straight away. So we had like a week of pre-rehearsal where we didn't even really do a proper meet and greet and everything. And we gather around the piano, and the MD says, so guys, gather around, like ask your neighbor's name, but we're not going to, do a lot of meet and greet time because we'll have officially next week. So let's just crack on and gather around the piano. Okay, let's start with this opening of Act 2, which starts with 2 verses of the character of the taxi driver. Oh, Ricardo's not here. Okay, who's the first cover? Ricardo Afonso? And I just like very slowly in panic, just like just offer myself up for the guillotine. And in front of everyone, I had to like note bash the first number of the first day of rehearsals, which was quite. So yeah, trial of fire. If you could survive that, then you can survive anything.
And apparently you survived it really well.
I can't complain. I was very lucky. Yeah.
Good. So with all of these things, I'm always kind of puzzled at who does what and what comes first, so to speak. So in your experiences, because I also know that this kind of changes, what is an understudy, a standby, an alternate, a swing? What is the difference between those roles?
Well, swings are essentially understudies. They just, in its same idea, they just probably have a lot more tracks to learn. And the swings tracks tend to be sometimes, not always, but sometimes just the ensemble base. So they need to know like 4 or 5 ensemble tracks. Then understudies, so understudies tend to be the understudies of the principals or the featured ensemble. So anyone that has anything featured-esque. So like Grand Terre in Les Mis is still something that needs 2 understudies for.
Yeah.
One of them can be a swing, 2 could be a swing. That doesn't necessarily differentiate, but it's just often more that's how they just separate the 2. Standbys are the best jobs in the business because you don't have any tracks. You don't have any on-stage track whatsoever apart from the principal track that you're covering. That tends to be an enormous part. So if it's the Elphas, it's the Christines, it's the Jean Valjeans, all of those kind of roles will have a standby. They do not have any set dates. They do not have any shows a week they do. They sit in the building and wait to go on. But sometimes you get to be at home waiting to go on. So they sometimes if your 3 o'clock cut-off point, you're still at home having a cup of tea. So you get to stay at home to stand by. So sometimes those jobs are, if
just waiting.
Just like wait. If you don't mind the wait, they're bliss. Because I was standby in Wicked, so it was lovely. Get paid to sit there and watch the tennis a lot of the time. I won't lie to you. And the alternates is sort of like the up from that, I would say, whereas you will get a show or a number of shows every week so that the principal never does all 8 shows. So there will always be an alternate is seen as that.
Okay. Nuno, do you agree? Is it the same thing for the shows that you've been on?
Yeah, I think it's obviously the in-house rules may vary slightly. The perks of whether you can. They're very rare when you can stay home, but sometimes you can. It depends on the contract. It depends on the track itself. It depends on the company. But yeah, I think that's obviously a pretty good sum up. I would say also standbys. If I'm not mistaken, standbys will have more than 1 track, as opposed to like an alternate will usually have 1 track, right? So a standby in Hamilton, for example, is quite complex because there's a lot of standbys, and there are some people that cover as many as like 4 or 5 leads. So lead tracks, which it's quite a feat, especially in terms of castability and in terms of like the ability to put yourself in those characters' shoes. And also understudies, like Alice said, are usually the most typical scenario is an understudy is also a member of the ensemble, and when the lead is off, the understudy bumps up to the lead, and then a swing who is outside of this whole configuration will slot in to replace the ensemble, and the swings have to learn, you know, they're very different things. When being an understudy or standby, learning a lead, what you have to be able to do is be able to be the character, to sing the character, to act the character. When you're a swing and you have to learn 4 ensemble tracks, the skill set is knowing where they go, what their spacing is, what costume changes they do, what's their backstage traffic, which is often forgotten, what their harmonies are, which is also often forgotten. Like, swings are champions. Their minds are unparalleled, I find.
Yeah. I've always thought, so when my experience is completely different to both of yours, because I have yet to make my West End debut. It will happen. But when I started back home in Portugal, I also started as an understudy, and I covered, the show had 14 characters and I covered 9 of them. And yeah, it's the brain has to be wired in a very different way, because you end up learning half an hour before that you're doing this character, and you just have to know where they go and go for it.
Yeah, I find some people are better than others, having worked extensively. I mean, I actually do think, and this is because I have understudied multiple roles in shows, I think I'd be quite a good swing, actually. Just never had a chance to really do it, and I just gone a different route. But there are definitely people who have maybe done it for the first time, and you know, I'll never name them, but I sit there and go, they shouldn't ever swing again. because they are really good at maybe one track they've really learned, and the others are like, no, darling, you're definitely in the wrong place. You've sung the wrong line. You know, and so there's certain people that I've gone, that's not for you, and you've learned your lesson in this job, and that's
Let's move on.
But to go back just ever so slightly about the standby thing, yeah, it does change. I've had 2 versions of it. For instance, in Wicked, I was just standby to Elphaba, that was it. The Glinda was just standby to Glinda, that was it. But in Come From Away, there's 4 girl standbys, and they cover multiple tracks each.
Okay.
So it works slightly differently, whatever the show needs.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have any. In Come From Away, there's no like ensemble. We are the ensemble. You know, it's 12 people on stage. So therefore, those 12 sort of actors need multiple covers each, and they call them standbys, because they're standing by ready to go on. They've not already got a track. So it can change up depending on the show and what it needs.
And they're in the building, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this because I actually saw Come From Away about 2 weeks ago, by the way, Alice. I feel like I'm stalking you. I'm telling you all these times.
Hey, I was in it. I only had 1 day off before the world collapsed. So was I on?
Yes, you were. You were great. I really enjoyed it. And also, like, especially in a show like that, it really redefines what we're talking about here, because it's a very unique kind of configuration, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, everyone... I found it such a unique format of a show in itself, how... you know, the pace and how it structures itself, how the numbers kind of, what do they follow, when is there an applause, when is there a pause in the show, when there isn't, like, it's super interesting. I think the staging works really well, but it must be quite a feat to be a standby on something like that.
Oh my God. Well, you know, just it's so simple when you look at it. It's just 12 people on stage and 12 chairs and 3 tables. Like, that's it. We've got nothing else than that. But the chairs all have to be specific. They're numbered. You can't just move any chair. One chair will be pointing one way, one person, and then, you know, they're all on different marks. They're all on different angles. They're all on different places where you move them. And not one track is the same. Like, obviously, my chair track, as it were, is completely different to anyone else's. And so they've not only got lines to learn, characters to learn, and things like that to do, the standbys, but they've also got to learn the choreography of 4 to 5 different people. And it's so difficult. And although it's funny because our show can't be cut either. So in some shows, we can do a cut show. So say we haven't got enough ensemble on stage because we've got people on holiday, people sick, people injured. We can do a cut version of it. So say there's normally 30 people on stage. Most shows can get by with 20, for instance, because we just cut certain people, certain bits get cut. Swings, we'll double up as 2 different people to make the show still work. In Come From Away, it has to be 12 people on that stage, otherwise we can't do the show.
Yeah.
So we have to have a decent number of standbys standing by, because we can't have that many people off. So it's it's quite. I think I'm presuming that's why there's a lot of standbys. I think happening in Hamilton as well, because I think it's quite difficult. There's so much happening and so many characters that if you can't cut it too much.
Yeah.
So but other shows sort of work easier. I mean, I remember once I did everything in Les Mis when I was in Les Miserables, and I was like factory girl and ensemble. There were so many girls off. They were like, "Can you do that bit? Can you do that bit? We'll put an outfit on you, and can you just say those lines as well?" And it was like you just covered like because we had no one there, and it was just like we've got two swings doing everything else. Alice, could you take some lines? And because I got musical brain, I just went, "Yeah, I'll do that. Let me do that bit because I know where I could, And so you just have to sometimes just all plow in and hope for the best. But I called it my featured ensemble Les Mis show, heavily featured ensemble show, because it was basically the next character was me. I just kept on putting on something else and having my fun.
The Alice show in the living room.
Yeah.
That must be also crazy for the person mixing the show. For something like
horrendous. It's just like and they miss lines out all the time because they were like, "Who's singing that line?" And they've just got a piece of paper on their like mixing board, just going, "I think that's Alice."
Oh.
They're just like literally just like just going basic like that.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, go.
There's also another anecdote that I feel like people should know, which is swing eyes, which is this. I don't know if I'm doing close to the camera now. Right? It's a known thing. Whenever a swing is on and he's doing multiple tracks and he's kind of looking peripherals because he's not sure if he's going with a chair before woman 5 or after woman 5. It's a real thing. Audiences don't know what 99% of things that happen on stage.
Yeah.
In Shrek, we all had fairy tale characters, and even when the swings went on, they had their own fairy tale character. So there was some characters we only saw now and again, and there was one that had a giant piece of like foliage coming out that went all the way around him, and then was like a hat. So it was a giant like sort of vine going all the way around him at the top, right? That was his costume. It was so enormous, and so no one was used to it until he had to go on as his fairy tale character, which was maybe out of God knows how many shows, maybe like 500 shows. He only went on about 4 times as his character. So suddenly when he's on, you had to give him way more space. So all the dance routines, all the scenes that we had to do, everyone was getting punched in the face by this vine, because you just went, "Oh God, he's on." Yeah, so we've got to make sure that we've on it. So then you start, everyone would be injured. People get an eye out with this vine fairy tale creature. It was just an absolute nightmare. So it really mixes it up, and it's great because it's enough to make you laugh, but it's also it's sometimes quite complicated for everyone involved.
I never realized that. I don't think, like, if people are not in the industry, they might not realize that each track, as it's written for the show, will have its own costume specific to the track, not to the person playing it. But that's quite unusual that it's the other way around, because the costumes have to be so unique, and you couldn't have like multiple of the same magical
You couldn't
creatures.
have too many. You couldn't have 2 like gingerbread men. You know what I mean? Like
Of course.
you couldn't have 4 pigs. It was always 3 pigs. So they had to have their own individual character. So it was always a challenge. Always made me laugh. But yeah,
That's amazing. That's a good.
Do you have any funny stories happening to you while you were covering or understudying, or is there any that you want to share? Go on, Nuno. You have a face.
Yeah. I mean, the one that springs to mind first is Hamilton related because it's more recent. My first year in Hamilton, I was a swing standby, so I covered 2 leads and 2 ensemble tracks. And the first time that I've ever stepped on the Hamilton stage, I was playing Lafayette, and he has to bring this blue crate in the middle of the revolve. The revolve is turning. All the ensemble are spinning and doing this choreo with arms, which nearly punches you in the face. And then you have to run in through the gap that is like staged and choreographed for you to run in, but you've never done it. And the show is like you're singing, and the revolve is turning, and the costumes are spinning, and the new costume corset is feeling quite new to your body as it is. And you have to run in and find this place to set the crate in. And it doesn't have the marks because you can't mark every single prop or every single piece of furniture. So you have to find it. And I was like trying to kind of find it, and I couldn't find it. And you have a certain amount of beats in the song to set the
Nice.
crate by, and then assume your position and hit a freeze. And the revolve will still turn with everyone on a kind of a Madame Tussauds Frozen moment. And I couldn't find the damn place for the crate. So I'm looking for the crate, I'm looking for it, and I thought, I can't just drop it anywhere because it's going to mess up the whole configuration. So I took 1 second too long to find the place of the crate. I finally find it, and I set it down, but that was the button of the freeze. So I ended up, I don't know if I'm going to reproduce it here or not, but I ended up in a squat with basically my bum to the audience, turning in slow motion, both cheeks to the gods like this. No one moving. Everyone in Madame Tussauds and my ass to the gods. So that was my debut, because I think when you start, I think you should start big. I think you should start big, and I started big, so you're welcome.
There you go. How about you, Alice? What do you have, like, funny story-wise?
I don't know if I have that many funny stories. I'm sure I probably do if I look back over the years, but I probably will blot them out. But I do get left on stage a lot. Is what I just get, like, people just forget to come on, and it's happened to me, like, I can't tell you how many times it happens to me. And I've got nothing, and I can't do anything. Like, there's always in a scene where I've got nothing I could possibly do. So, you know, it's like someone's just forgotten to come on, and I'm in a living room searching for them. So just do lots more intensive searching, and waiting for someone to, you know, a stage manager suddenly in the wings going, you know, and I don't know, shall I come, you know, sort of giving them eyes, like, shall I come off? You know, that's my eyes when you say, shall I exit? And they go, no, come. But I got left 4 times in Wicked. I get left all the time. I just get left. Sophie once didn't come on for good, so I was just really angry on stage, waltzing around, trying to still be in the moment. It's just, I just get left on stage all the time. It's like a thing. It's like, you know, who's going to leave Alice this week? Hanging there, waiting to come on.
I don't know whether it's a laugh or give you a virtual.
Virtual hug. I know. No, it's actually became
a social
quite funny.
distance.
It was social distance hug, digital hug. Yeah, no, it was. I found it quite funny. And I would just say, if anyone did it, I'd say it's a bottle of prosecco. I can't wait for it. You know what I mean? As payment, because you left me on stage. And of course, it feels like when you're left on stage, it feels like 10 minutes. It's probably 10 seconds, if that, you know. But you are left there, and it feels like you're there for minutes, and you're just having to just walk around, just walking around the stage, just doing that with nothing to play and no lines to say. So it's just horrendous. But yeah, that's probably one of the things I'd say that happens to me the most.
You get left behind. Oh,
that's traumatizing.
It is.
I think it should be 2 bottles of prosecco.
Yeah, so do I.
1 per each 2 seconds you are left.
Mm-hmm.
So now I wanted to know, because both of you have had that experience of first being an understudy or a swing, and then when audition time comes, you manage to sort of go up.
Get promoted.
Yeah, get promoted. So I wanted to know how the audition process was for that. We can start with you, Nuno, because we have been starting with Alice. So let's hear your story. How was that?
Excuse me. Well, first of all, I have to say that in an industry that doesn't usually do this, I'm so happy and grateful that this is happening a tiny bit more nowadays. Yeah. I see it happening a bit in Hamilton. I see it happening, obviously, I know it happened with you, Alice, which is incredible. And I know it happened, I think everyone's talking about Jamie is doing it a little bit. And I just think it makes so much sense because the norm is that for some reason understudies get stuck on this threshold of understudies because the production thinks, wow, he can do the lead, he can sing the lead, he can act the lead, but he can also dance the ensemble. So he's actually more useful to us to stay as a first cover or as an understudy, or as a standby, because he's reliable and he never, and he can jump in and do it mid-show if we have to, because we've asked him before and he's proved that he can do it. And now I'm seeing it more and more, people getting the opportunity to go from first cover to playing the lead, and I just think this is incredible. I think the productions that do this need some applause and need some merit, because this is how it should be. I think if you are confident about your casting, then you will give the role of first cover of a part to someone who is probably the second person best right now to play that part. And therefore, if the main person leaves, odds are that person is a strong candidate to play the part itself. If not, it's because you're not very confident about your casting. Sorry. So I just thought I'd say that. I covered Hamilton as well as Lafayette in my first year, and then the opportunity came up to stay in the show, and negotiations and stuff, and they suggested, would you consider being the alternate Hamilton? And so sometimes promotions don't need for you to re-audition, because both the creatives of America and the UK creatives have seen you do it. Mm-hmm. Other times you do. The norm is that you do, I think, but I may be wrong. I had to audition again for our lovely American creatives because they were in town, and the British team had already worked plenty with me in rehearsals and stuff. So I did. I met up with them once, which felt very less stressful than an audition, because you know them, but at the same time they are the American creatives, which come down once a year. They're like our health and safety inspection, but on the artistic side. They come up and you really want to make sure that everything's top notch and cool. But they're really lovely, and they give really amazing notes. They give you notes that you really want to follow. So it was a really blessed process for me. So yeah, that was mine.
Nice. And you, Alice, I remember I was having some voice lessons with you at the time, and I remember hearing about the great news. So let us know again.
The Wicked. This is, you talk about Wicked,
the Wicked. Wicked, yeah.
I did have to audition again. I think it is the case when there's sort of like two teams. There's the original sort of American team, and then there's the British team. And most of the time, if not all the time, that the original American team are the ones that have to have the final say, as it were. Yeah. So the British team can say, listen, we like this. These are our picks. Can you just yay or nay? And the majority of the time they will yay them, because they say, yeah, you pick right. You know what you're doing. Yeah. You're great. And they're great. Yeah. But you just have to go through that process. And I did have to audition for, even though I played it, multiple times that year as standby, I still had to go on camera and go over to the American team and get confirmed. But I was standing in my kitchen, and Gavin, my husband, was cooking breakfast. I think it was eggs he was cooking, and they were casting at the time Town and Tor, and I thought I think I could really get the Tor here. I think I could get Elphaba on the Tor. Because they have to find two Elphabas, and that's almost near impossible. They just struggle. So I was like, I think I've got a real big chance of getting the tour. And anyway, I'd waited like 4 weeks, and then got a call back, and my agent went, I'm so sorry, babe, you haven't got the tour. And I went, I am so shocked. I said to my agent, I'm so shocked, because I really thought it was mine. He went, oh, no, it's because you got Town instead. And I threw the phone across the room, and I went, and he went and got champagne. I mean, I was meant to be in work in an hour. This was on a Wednesday, so we had two shows. I absolutely had half a bottle of champagne. I'm not even going to lie to you about it, because I was absolutely overjoyed. And I walked in, I was like, and couldn't tell anyone for weeks. But yeah, it's you do have to think. I think it's always different. I think the understudies, and I've been understudy for years, and some roles I've said I should have got that, and some roles I've gone, I'm not quite right, but I can do it. I think the word that's really useful that Nuno said was, if you're useful, you get really, really stuck. If you're good at one good thing and that's about it, then you will tend to be really successful in that one thing. If you are quite good at everything, I can sing soprano, I can belt, I could also play a bit older, but I can also sing a bit young. I can play character. Like when I was Les Mis again, I was like old crone at 24, you know, like playing old crone at 24 years old is just weird. But they were like, no, it works. You do make it work. So you suddenly become incredibly useful, and therefore an ensemble track is better suited to you, because they go, you can do that, you can do that, you can do that, and you can do that. So sometimes, you know, it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think there's some parts that I've covered that I've gone, like I covered Cosette in Les Mis. Now, I mean, like what a lovely part for some people, but it was as inappropriate for me as it can get. I mean, I looked ridiculous in that black outfit. I looked utterly stupid. But I covered it because I could sing a top C. That is quite literally it. And so they went, oh, she can second cover it. She never go on that much, but she can at least do it. But it was ridiculous. But I laughed with everyone else on stage about how ridiculous I looked as I said. And I was about 10 foot taller than any Marius. So, you know, it just looked stupid. So that, I was never like, oh, I really hope I get seen for Cosette this year, because I knew it was never going to be right. However, like the Fontaine, which I also covered, you know, I was like, that's where I'm more right for it. So you sort of know where your casting is and you know what you go for. And so when something comes along that's perfect, like Elphaba for me, I was like, I should get this because I'm really good at it. And now I've done it standby. I've proven that I can do it. And I've really got the hang of it now. I was like, I really should be getting this because I know, you know, and so it's about finding your niche and finding what is, and I mean, I've got older, I'm a bit older now. And so I don't have to worry too much about those Jubilees anymore that maybe I was up for once. It's very particular what I can be seen for now. So, you know, you start to find your path a bit more, but I do think I was always told that I would grow into my casting because I always felt a bit more womanly than a lot of the people in their 20s did. And I sounded a bit older and I acted a bit more knowingly. And I think that everyone always said, when you hit your 30s, you'll be better, you'll do better, you'll get the parts that you're expecting to play now. And it has been very much the case that is where my journey's gone so far.
It's really difficult, isn't it, though, for like to find out your niche and your casting types and stuff. Whenever I teach, I always encourage people to think of themselves as a product as opposed to a person. Like I get given, and I always put it on really rough terms so that we don't spend hours, which is I always get the Juans. Like I always get either Latino, flirty, over the top, camp, talks with his hands, all the stereotypes that are so politically incorrect. Or I get something that's even more politically incorrect, which is like slightly aggressive, looming, doesn't talk much, does a lot of like threatening eyes, comes from like places where you can't really pronounce his name. Like it's really politically incorrect. But I could either take this home and tell myself, oh, maybe I'm aggressive, maybe I'm a bit too daunting, maybe I talk to my hands too much, maybe I'm too camp, maybe I'm too flamboyant. Or I can just say, no, I'm a product, and this is what people like to kind of project onto my face and how I stand and how I talk, and milk it and use it into product. It's not the same as you as a person, and people struggle and takes time to find their niche, and that's normal. But yeah, I encourage people to think of themselves as a product, not as themselves.
Yeah,
nice.
It's a good. I'm missing the words.
Lesson.
Yes, thank you. So thank you very much for talking about all of this understudy swing alternate thing with me and for sharing your stories. And is there anything else that you would like to say?
Just good luck to anyone out there who's doing it. I mean, I've spent 15 years in the business now, and my career's been very varied. It's grown. I've learned a lot. And I think no matter what your journey is, I think there's always something to learn. If you're the second cover, if you're the first cover, if you're the standby, if you're the part, you know, you learn so much in every aspect of these jobs, no matter what you're doing, and just take that knowledge and listen, work is work. We'd all like to work. So don't judge your job on anything other than, I want to be working. I want to be working in the industry I love, you know, let that be the first step and then grow from there, you know. Mm-hmm. I wanted to work when I first left. I wanted to be in the West End. I wanted to be in musicals. I wanted to show people I could do it. Then your drive, once you've done that, changes. Well, now I want to be seen as that a bit more. So then you start to go, okay, now I want to try that. I want to be the first cover instead. I want to prove that I can do that a lot more. And then you go, right, well, now I want to play the parts, or now I want to be doing that. Because, you know, and so your drive constantly changes, and let that be a journey as well, because it teaches you a lot about yourself and watching other people and getting their information. I think you have to accept your path is not like anyone else's, and and you should embrace it no matter what.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I would also say that it's a difficult industry. We all know this. I would urge people to ask themselves if they would be happy with the pursuit, if they would be happy with the chase, and to find happiness in the pursuit, because we cannot really control the result of an audition. You can work harder, you can prepare more, you can etc. So there are a lot of things you can do to up your chances and your odds, but the pursuit, there's an exercise of finding happiness in the pursuit, and I think that's really, really important for us not to be at the mercy of a phone call.
I agree.
Yes. Good. That's a lovely note to end on. Thank you very much. And
Thanks for having us.
I will see you soon.
From our room.
Thanks, darling. Thanks so much. I know.
Now that was fun, even though Zoom tried to edit for me and didn't do a great job. Thanks, Zoom. And Alice and Nuno did explain it very well, but I'm just gonna sum it up for you. An understudy has their own part in a production, and then they study under a principal role. They usually go on if the principal is sick or injured, but they don't have set number of shows that they're gonna do in their contract, usually. An alternate, however, will have a set number of shows in the contract that they will do. Usually, for instance, on Hamilton, Monday evenings are always done by the alternate, Alexander Hamilton. Nuno Queimado, you rock! Bear in mind, an alternate will not go on in a situation of emergency or sickness. That usually is the role of the understudy or the standby. Nice segue, Tanya. The standby, as Alice very well said, are the lucky ones. I mean, if you like and don't mind the wait. Standbys don't have a certain number of shows that they're gonna do. They do go on in case of an emergency, if something happens, if someone is injured, but they don't have a number of shows that they're gonna do. They're literally standing by to go on. And then you have the swings. The swings are like the superheroes of the whole thing. Swings don't usually cover principal roles, but they will know all of the tracks for all of the ensemble. Wow. The sun has decided to shine for all of our swings. Yay! Sorry, I'm just gonna move a little bit. Try and get this. There we go. A bit better. Cool. So, coming back. Swings, superheroes. They know everything that's going on, everything that every ensemble member is doing, both on stage and backstage. Can you imagine? If you want to follow a really cool swing account, Amy at MT Swing Life on Instagram, she's the best. She will explain in depth everything that a swing does. And if you don't follow her already, I would recommend checking her out. Awesome. Now, the bigger the show, the more likely it is to have all of these. But usually a show, no matter how small it is, it will have an understudy. I mean, if it's a really short run, probably not. But a small show with a longer run will at least have understudies. I hope you enjoyed this talk, this video, and thank you, Alice and Nuno, for spending a little bit of your time talking to me and just making sure that everyone knows all of the intricacies of our lovely theater life. And if you enjoyed it, comment down below what was your favorite story, or even better, share your own stage stories. Let's make this not only my acting edit, but the acting edit. Thank you.
And action! It's a wrap.
From our rooms, from our kitchens.
Thank you.
Come on, the acting edit!
Waiting for the sun to calm down. Waiting for the sun, waiting for the sun, waiting for the sun to calm down.